My name is Dominic Detwiler. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm our public policy strategist here at Equality Ohio. So essentially, that means that I manage our work at the State House to pass things like the Ohio Fairness Act or protecting youth against conversion therapy. Also means I'm kind of working on our efforts to fight those bad bills that we see popping up, like the effort to ban trans youth from sports. And a big part of that job has been putting together our scorecard that we put out every 2 years. I also kind of work on a relatively newer part of our work, which has been focused on engaging federal legislators on passing non-discrimination protections for our community at the federal level. Right now, that's working on the Equality Act. But also, since I've been around for 4 or 5 years now, 4 years now, I also am a bit of a jack of all trades, if you will. I've been kind of helping out with a lot of odds and ends for a while, and helping to maintain the website, doing some outreach in southeastern Ohio because that's where I'm from and have lived most of my life. So I I guess I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, but really focusing on our policy work. Under normal circumstances, I would be spending a lot more time at the State House. Um, but right now, it does mean that I sit behind a computer and type things at people all day. Lots of meetings, but yeah, with COVID and the lack of precautions that are happening at the State House right now, it's not actually that safe for us to be there. So we've really only been to the State House once um, between when COVID started and now. I think my story with Equality Ohio starts in the summer of 2017. As an undergrad, I was lucky enough to be part of this great scholarship program at Ohio University, where we were assigned to pursue some kind of public service internship after our first year. And I really wanted to do something that would have an impact on improving the lives of LGBTQ young people, particularly who was interested in youth homelessness and mental health. And that's kind of how I came to get to Equality Ohio, and I've kind of been in various positions with the organization since then. But my academic background is I was a sociology major, did a bunch of minors, including like music and psychology and political science, but actually started undergrad as a music major. So that's that's kind of, I guess, from an academic perspective. But I've been with Equality Ohio through most of my undergrad degree, and then I graduated in May of 2020. So I've been full time since January of 2020. I think a lot of this for me comes down to protecting LGBTQ youth and having a positive impact on mental health of young people. Personally, I struggled a lot with mental health issues as a young person, and continue to, but I think all of these issues that we're working on, these are pieces of legislation, of good public policy that is going to have a positive impact on everyone in our state, but especially like young people, and is going to help make Ohio a place where people can be free to be who they are and be able to access the care that they need. If we look at the data, we know that if we were to have better policies around our issues, LGBTQ folks wouldn't have to worry as much about discrimination. We would all be a lot healthier across the board, both mentally and physically, and that's really the core of what drives me to do this work. I think a good part of why these issues are important to me, I think like a lot of people might think of this as kind of counter to the normal narrative, but I was raised pretty intensely in the Catholic Church, and I got to the point in high school where I didn't see the kind of mainstream of that institution really supporting and like protecting people in a way that you would expect, that I expected from my understanding of theology. I'm not a I unfortunately haven't really become a very religious person as an adult, but that kind of dissonance, I think, between what I thought religion was about and what it was panning out to be is really the driving factor in my desire to want to focus on LGBTQ issues specifically. I think the thing that I've learned the most, especially in this specific role, is that there's always something that we can there's always a starting point. You can always find a place where we can agree, regardless of what your politics or what your ideology is. There's always a place where we can agree, and we can start from there. And I think that has definitely panned out. I think as someone who works in the Ohio legislature, which is can seem to be a not super friendly place to be doing the work that we do. We've been able to develop really good relationships with folks that you wouldn't necessarily expect, and it's because we're willing to go in and find that point of agreement and build a relationship from there with folks that you might not expect. I really do think that there's space for us to make that happen. I mean, I think of folks like Mike Ruley, for example, who's a lead sponsor on our bill on the Senate side, on the Ohio Fairness Act. He is very business focused, and I think we've been able to show very business focused folks that this is like not only a morally right issue, but an issue that's going to be good for businesses. And I think that has really had a lot of success. Both across the board at the legislature. I think in terms of more ideological differences, I think in terms of those places where there are wide ideological gaps, there are still basic values that I think we hold as Americans, as people, that we can touch on. I think even if that comes down to things like just the idea of freedom, what does freedom mean? And I think when we get down to that, it means being able to live your life without other people interfering in a way that is harmful. And I think when we get to that level of understanding, there's a lot of opportunity for more conservative-minded folks to see that that's really what we're about. We're about making sure that everyone has access to those promises of our country and of our general ideology. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of great resources on our website. We have volunteer nights every other week now, on Thursday nights, I think they are right now. I think we definitely need help with our legislative work. I think if you are a trans person who is in sports or would like to play sports, we would really love to connect with you and help share your story with legislators, because that's the really big negative bill that we're working on fighting right now, and we're seeing these across the country, is states trying to ban trans athletes from playing sports. And I think in addition to that, we also need cisgender allies to step up and stand up for their trans siblings who want to play sports. So anyone who really has interest in sports and making sure that sports is fair for all should definitely reach out, and we will get you connected with those legislators that need to hear from them. It can be really hard to be a young person, or any person really, and see the person who your community has put in charge of representing them leading a charge against your existence. That can be really difficult. And I want those folks to know that we're working every day to make sure that that doesn't happen, and that they're loved and seen, and that their experience is valid. Yeah, I mean, I think it gets better. You know, you kind of find your thing, and you can get help. Like, getting help is good, and I think we're finally coming to a place as a society where we're like understanding that it's okay to get help, and finding your thing and getting help together is really, it really opens up a lot of opportunities, and there's always a place for you, and you matter. And this isn't the big nugget that I think you might be looking for, but I really do think that folks need to pay more attention to state policy making. I'm a bit of a policy nerd. This is just kind of what I do. I think that there's a lot of attention paid to what's happening at the federal level, both in terms of elections and in terms of policy that's being passed. And I think that's a good thing. I think what's really dangerous is that folks forget that the most important policy that gets passed that impacts their lives in the biggest way happens not in DC, but in Columbus. And getting involved, whether that's with Equality Ohio or with another organization that's working on state policy, is really important to making sure some of these basic fundamental rights are made a reality in our lives, but then also looking at other issues too. State policy is really where that impact is going to be felt.
Happy Pride, everyone. I'm Gio Santiago. I use he, him, his pronouns from Equality Ohio. For Pride Month, we're celebrating by uploading a new video to YouTube every weekday for the entire month. If you'd like to support Equality Ohio, you can like and subscribe, or to support us directly, donate at equalityohio.org and share this video. Thank you and happy Pride.